Welcome everyone to History Gone Wilder, part of Half History Will Travel. I'm your host, the Wilder historian, Dr. Lucas Wilder. And last time, John C. Brown's division launched unsuccessful attacks against the Union Army of the Tennessee. Now another Confederate division makes it to the field and tries their hand at dislodging William T. Sherman's veterans of the Vicksburg Campaign. If you like what I do, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, join the Patreon page, or purchase something from the Teespring store or Etsy shop. Every little bit helps. Thank you. John Bell Hood couldn't hear the battle raging around Ezra Church due to an acoustic shadow that prevented the noise from traveling just 3 miles to his headquarters. So he sent off a message to Stephen D. Lee. Lee was supposed to be attacking Olive Otis Howard's Army of the Tennessee and prevent them from getting control of Lickskillet Road. He was doing just that, but Hood, unaware of the fighting, told him to hit the enemy in the flank as they were preparing to hit the east side of Atlanta. Hood also dashed off another message to William Hardee, another of his corps commanders, telling him to prepare for a possible attack by Union forces. Hood could feel the noose tighten around Atlanta, and he was on high alert. Randall Gibson's brigade of Louisianians was in the lead of Henry Clayton's division. Clayton only brought 3 of his 4 brigades into the fight at Ezra Church. The 4th Brigade under Abda Johnston stayed in the fortifications of Atlanta. Gibson was a Kentuckian by birth, but he and his family moved to Louisiana when he was a child. He attended Yale University and became a lawyer upon returning to Louisiana. Gibson joined the 13th Louisiana Infantry when the war broke out and served in some of the war's bloodiest battles in the Western Theater. At the Battle of Atlanta just a few days before, Gibson's brigade wasn't engaged, being held in reserve, so the Louisianians were the freshest troops in Clayton's division. Gibson watched as his division began forming for an attack. Clayton put Gibson's brigade in the front on the left and Bushrod Jones's brigade on his right, with Alpheus Baker's brigade in support, but Jones was having difficulty placing his men. Gibson left his own brigade to help Jones coordinate his regiments. As he did so, Lee was growing incredibly impatient at the time it was taken to launch an attack. Lee sent a message to prod Clayton into attacking. The messenger didn't find Clayton, but did find Colonel Leon von Zinken, commander of the 20th Louisiana, and relayed the information to attack immediately. Since Gibson was away, von Zinken led the brigade into combat, disrupting Clayton's entire plan to launch his entire division at the Union line at the same time. The Louisianians attacked the Union line around Ezra Church in a ferocious assault that the Federals claimed was much more intense than the Alabamians' attack about 30 to 40 minutes before. The 46th Ohio moved from the right of the 70th Ohio to the left of the Ohioans. Together, the 2 Buckeye regiments delivered destructive volleys into the enemy. A couple companies of the 46th Ohio carried Spencer repeaters, capable of firing 7 rounds without reloading. Members of the 30th Louisiana Battalion took a horrible beating from those weapons, with all the regimental commanders being hit, along with 12 captains and lieutenants. The flag bearer was told to keep the flag safe at all costs, and if necessary, take the banner from the staff and tie it around him to get it to safety. But Federal bullets found the flag bearer, and Private Harry Davis of the 46th Ohio braved the storm of bullets to capture the flag and bring it into Union lines. Davis would receive the Medal of Honor for his deed. The 30th was virtually annihilated. Taken into battle about 270 men, over 200 became casualties. One Union officer wrote of the fight with the men from Louisiana that Major Brown told me he saw the flag fall 4 different times, and the last time there being none of its brave followers left to carry it off the field. And I must say here that the fighting of the enemy merits a better cause. They came up facing this regiment of ours, too proud and brave to be driven away by slight losses, but stood there, fighting to the last, scarcely enough to tell the sad tale to the remainder. Randall Gibson arrived on the field just in time to watch the 30th disintegrate. Gibson's brigade got close to the enemy, close enough that some of them were dragged into the Union lines and captured, but they weren't able to make any headway. The left of his line fell apart, with the 30th barely existing at that point. The right of his brigade made at least 2 forlorn attacks against 3 Missouri regiments that punished them for their stubbornness. Clayton rode up to Gibson and inquired about his situation. Clayton could see that the left of the line was gone, so Gibson requested support for his right, but before any assistance could be sent, the brigade fell back about 400 yards to the safety of a ravine. Within 30 minutes, the brigade lost 500 men of the around 1,100 it went into battle with that day. The 20th Louisiana, for example, was depleted so much that the entire regiment fielded just 24 officers and men. Back at Hood's headquarters, about 3 miles from the fighting at Ezra Church, the Confederate Army commander was uneasy about his grip on Atlanta. While 2 of his corps were out of the defenses of the city, Sherman took advantage of what appeared to be a decrease in troops along the city's earthworks and began probing along the perimeter with the Army of the Cumberland and the Army of the Ohio. This helped convince Hood that his 2-day attack plan may spell disaster for Atlanta, and began sending off messages to Lee and Stuart to attack the enemy in the flank, instead of waiting until the following day. Making matters more complicated on the Confederate front was the fact that Hood didn't designate an overall commander between Stuart or Lee. Both were the same rank from the same date. So who would take command in the absence of Hood? Lee wanted to get Clayton's division moving, but with one brigade nearly annihilated on the heights at Ezra Church, it would be difficult to launch a successful assault, so he turned to Brown's division again, asking for one more brigade to shore up the left flank of Clayton's attack. Lee chose Manigault's brigade. Arthur Manigault began forming his brigade for another attack, but went to his division commander John C. Brown for clarification. Brown told him his orders, but before Manigault got out of earshot, Brown called him back and withdrew the order to attack. It would be wrong to send the already depleted brigade into the fight again. Nevertheless, Clayton was sending in another brigade against the Union line, one that would attack the Federal troops around Ezra Church. He chose Alpheus Baker's brigade to launch the assault. Baker was a tough veteran, being wounded at Champion Hill. He refused to leave his command for 5 days before the pain was too much to bear. He led his men into battle but quickly suffered a painful wound that made him leave the field, leaving John Higley to take command of the brigade as they exchanged volleys with the Federals of Charles Wood's division. With no support, Higley withdrew his troops from the front lines. Another attack had failed. Lee's attempts to dislodge the Federals had come at a terrible price, with over 1,500 casualties in about 2 hours. It was now 1:45 p.m., and Stuart's corps were on their way to lend Lee a hand and try their luck at moving the Army of the Tennessee from its perch on the heights.